Node.js process management can extend to something far more complicated than what we saw in the previous section. In this one, we will focus on a more service-oriented and even microservice-oriented approach to Node.js process management, where we view a process or a cluster of processes as an independent service. Let's begin with introducing PM2, an advanced process management tool for Node.js. PM2 can spawn processes in two ways: fork and cluster. Fork will use the child process module that we reviewed in the last section to spawn all of our apps and services as child processes. PM2 remains the main process in that case. The main benefit of this approach is that you can change the execution interpreter and make your app work with proxy servers like Nginx. Cluster, on the other hand, is a new Node.js feature. Node's Cluster API helps us take advantage of multi-core systems by allowing us to spawn as many instances of the process as the number of cores in the system. It's great for quickly bootstrapping a PM2 instance, especially if you only use Node.js. For the rest of the section, we are going to stick to cluster mode. PM2 also allows us to spawn multiple instances of each process, and we can control the number of instances. We can have a single instance, which is the default, multiple instances, or even leave it to PM2 to decide based on the number of cores the system has. So if we set instances to max in a system with 8 cores, we will end up with 8 instances of the process. If we run the same process on a machine with 2 cores, we just get 2 instances of the process. That does not mean that we cannot have 8 instances running on a dual core system. It just means that they can't share CPU time all at once. Multiple instances have a single drawback in development environments, however. They make debugging harder. So you're going to have a hard time using VS Code to debug your code if you use multiple instances. With that in mind, let's go back to Visual Studio Code and begin building what will look like a customer relationship management tool. The goal for this section isn't to build a fully functional application or even an API. It's more like working towards that goal and ensuring best practices and security measures are taken so that our application can run safely, cannot be compromised, and can scale independently. With all that said, I've created this import service folder and I'm also installing PM2 right now on the terminal. An import service is obviously a way for us, for our CRM tool, to import new customers from an existing database to our applications database. We don't have a database yet. What we do have, however, is an Express server. So let's go ahead and build that Express server. So after importing Express and assigning a port, it's always good to check if the port is a valid port, if it has been provided, otherwise terminate the process, and then we can start working on the application. We can make the application listen on the port and print a user-friendly error message. This is the bare basics of what seems like an Express server. We will go back to this one, enrich it with more functionality by adding middleware and controllers, but for now, let's see how PM2 can help us spawn this server. This is something that's going to run a specific port, but we can do nothing with PM2, not much anyway, without creating an ecosystem config.js file. So the ecosystem file is where you define everything that will be handled by PM2. You can export a module that contains a single object, an array application definitions. We still have only one application to be launched by PM2, so we're going to name it import service and provide a path to the script that when executed will start the import service, and that script is none other than our server's entry point, the import service/index.js file. We can watch it, we can provide environmental variables like the node environment, which is development, and of course we absolutely need a port. I'm gonna say 5001 is a nice unused port in the system, so if I use PM2 start, you see some logs there, and the import service seems to have started and then immediately stopped. This is obviously because we haven't installed all of our dependencies. One way to see that is you can run PM2 list and see all of the running applications along with execution modes. And you can use PM2 logs all to see what went wrong. So we cannot find module express. That can be solved by stopping process with PID1 and then installing express. So you see right now the application, the import service is stopped while we install dependencies. Let's also install some other dependencies that we will need down the line, like bcrypt for hashing passwords and JSON Web Token for generating user tokens later in a future video. And now let's run PM2 start. Now the service is online, as you can well see in that table, and we can see the logs that the import service is listening on the port we assigned. Perfect. You can also run PM2 stop all to stop all available services. We happen to only have one at the moment, but we will have more. Now let's change the execution mode to cluster. The default one is fork, and set the instance numbers to max. Now I do have, this is a dual core system, so we don't expect much, but if you run this on a multi-core system, you're going to see multiple instances with multiple PIDs running for the import service. What we do see, however, is that the mode is set to cluster, which means that our settings change took effect.